Getting favourites is really difficult. There are so many places that I'm so fortunate to have travelled and so many different things that I've seen. So I guess what I've tried to do is look at things that would have made some of the biggest impact in my thinking about things, as opposed to just entertainment or just going out there for the hell of it or having a good time partying hard and all of that sort of thing. I think one of the first countries that we came to as I deployed as a young fella and really surprised me, sort of shocked me, coming out of a very nice county in England and suddenly finding yourself here, was when we got to the Suez Canal and I was able to get off at the top end of the canal and then meet the ship at the bottom end of the canal, and they'd do like tours in between. So I got off and I went down into Cairo in Egypt and got to go to the pyramids at Giza, and all of that, the smell, the heat, the fact that back in the day then you could actually climb up the flipping pyramids, you were allowed to climb up and get up there. So I'm stood there clambering up these dirty great big pyramids thinking I'm just a skinny white boy from the UK, 16, 17 years old, and I'm in the middle of flipping Egypt and I'm stood on the pyramids that I've seen in school books, and here I am, take a picture, and blow me, aren't these stones flipping big? And how the hell did they do that? And why is the town just in spitting distance? This should be in the middle of nowhere. The way the photographs are taken all looks like it's out in the middle of the desert. And so things like that really surprised me. And then the hotel that we stayed at, because we obviously had a couple of nights as the ship was transiting through the canal, was right near a cemetery. And so you'd got like wailing going on during the day and the night. I was still on the balcony looking out over a cemetery in one end and bustling aspects of Cairo in another, and everything was sensory overload. And as a young fellow, I thought to myself, man, this is incredible. How on earth did I end up out here? It's just bonkers.
I loved Egypt as well. In fact, strangely, one of the coldest evenings I've ever known in my life was in Egypt. We did a Sod's Opera just before we went through the canal, and it was so cold. It was November. Alexandria. Went there a couple of 3 times. There's a guy posted on the Aurora a memory, because I had the monkey. I had it on the Aurora as well. So it's like this puppet monkey. We went out in uniform. We was in whites. And I had this monkey on my arm. And we were all in a horse-drawn carriage. But the horse kept panicking because if I was there with this monkey, it nearly bolted. The guy couldn't control it. We nearly ended up going through the streets at the high rate of knots. Fabulous place. And the food, fantastic.
It was a real opening up of your mind to different people. Obviously, Britain is a multicultural society, but you didn't meet that many foreigners in my part of England. It was a very traditionally Anglo-Saxon part of England. And so suddenly being thrust in the middle of all of these Egyptians and all of the different, as you say, sights, smells, foods, everything, and recognising, man, there's some really good people around here. I'm sure that people got into strife, and I have some vague memories of people getting in aggravation with the locals. But I repeat what I've said before. The vast majority of countries that I've been to, the people that I've met, the real people, have been incredible. And I have quite a low view of humanity in many regards. But the people that I have met on my travels have just been super. People that could really rip you off. And I've got no doubt that as a youngster you were ripped off anyway and they made a few more bucks out of you than they should have done. But they were kind while they did it. They ripped you off with a smile, which was great.
We have said this in a previous episode, and I remember talking to you about this on the Charybdis. How is it that when you go to these places, and some of them compared to the level of life, housing, transport and so on that we were used to in the UK, it was much lower then. They used to call them the third world. They got rid of that now. It's developing countries. And yet they were always happy, smiling. And why is it then you got back to Britain miserable as anything half the time? It was so marked, so noticeable that was one abiding memory I'll always have. How friendly the people were when you went abroad.
And the Middle East gets a bit of a bad rep, right? It gets these countries get a bit of a bad rep in the news that we get put out today. It's always people being killed and Islamic fundamentalists running riot and everybody's horrendous. I don't know what it's like there now. I've not been back to Egypt for many, many years. But when I was there, it was nothing like that. I felt perfectly safe wandering around the streets. I felt perfectly safe going off into different places. If anybody had had a go at me for something, there would have been people in the crowd that would have come out and helped me rather than join in. So the average person on the street, I think, would have been fantastic. Maybe I'm naive to think that back in the day. Maybe they wouldn't have done. But from what I saw and my experiences, it was really good. Going through Egypt, having that experience, Cairo and obviously later on Alexandria and through the Suez and all of those sights and sounds and being able to put your hands into history, going back so many thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Really poignant. So that stands out to me as one of my Royal Naval best ventures.